Oh, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay. The beautiful thing about that is empty is not empty at all. It is not emptiness. It's actually, paradoxically, the opening to greater fullness than we could ever experience by trying to be full. Empty. I don't know about you, but when I hear that song and take it in, it's such a relief. And it goes back to the chant that we sang too, which is about surrender. There's a line in there that says, I trust and I know. And so when we trust, then it's being empty, welcoming the emptiness, surrendering to it. Makes perfect sense. But if we're caught up in fear and worry and doubt and all those human, natural, knee-jerk reactions to stuff that goes on in life, then emptiness and surrender, are just out the window. They make no sense. But have you noticed, we're also like the hamster on the wheel when we stay in that mode of have to keep busy, have to keep filling up, that there's never an end to it. In that song, it says, nothing to say, nothing to do, nowhere to go right now, no more ambition or fight, no expectations at all. It's a new kind of intention. But somehow it seems so right. Nothing on my mind, and I've never felt better. Thank you for that, Jay. And it seems so counterintuitive, of course, doesn't it? During these times when our world seems so caught up in conflict and chaos and confusion, a reaction is the opposite. And we try to fix. And in that trying to fix, of course, we then say, I don't know where to begin. There's so much that needs fixing. And then the next thing is, I don't even know how to fix whatever I'm going to fix. I'm reminded of this that Buckminster Fuller said. It just happened to come to my attention this week. I love how that happens when I've got something on my mind and here comes something that just nails it. As you probably know, Buckminster Fuller was a brilliant 20th century inventor and visionary in many fields. He considered himself a comprehensive anticipatory design scientist to solve global problems. He invented the geodesic dome. That's what he's famous for. But he did many, many things, and his ideas and his work continue to influence new generations of designers and architects and scientists and artists working all to create a sustainable planet. Incredibly brilliant man. And here is the underlying theme of his work. And we can take this to heart. Because when we want to change things, think about this. He said, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model simply obsolete. What a thought. What a thought. And yet, that is precisely the theme and the intention of Science of Mind Principles that you hear every Sunday here. You heard it in Jim's beautiful prayer. That prayer was taking a look at the existing model and then saying, wait a minute, there's a truer, newer model that makes the old obsolete. It's a new way of thinking. And I would venture to say even the words of that song, Empty, circling back to that for a minute, that's a new model that makes the old obsolete. Now, to do this requires not for anyone else to do anything to or for us. It requires our thinking, our consciousness to change, building that new model. And so that speaks to our theme for this month, which is about contentment, the power of contentment. Actually, it's based on a book by Alan Cohen called The Power of Radical Contentment. Well, it's called Enough Already. The subtitle is The Power of Radical Contentment. And I like that, radical contentment, because when we think about the demands of our lives and our world, and again, all the things that would pull us down or pull us into chaos and confusion and struggle, to opt for contentment might be kind of a radical idea. So he chose that word wisely, radical contentment. And here's what he wrote about that. And I shared this with you last week when we started this series. In a world where fear, crisis, and insufficiency seem to dominate, the notion of contentment may seem totally unrealistic and crazy and even heretical. And yet, being able to find contentment right where you stand just might be the answer in a world seemingly obsessed with discontent. It's easy to lose sight of the truth that to have a consciousness of contentment is also to have a powerful tool for making welcome all the possibilities we desire. Because I want you to know, and in his book he brings this out in many ways, contentment doesn't mean complacency. Rather, it's really about appreciating all that you have while reaching for greater experiences. Think about it. Think about how much more open you are to all the possibilities that you desire or that are available to you, and the ones you don't even know about yet. Think about how much more open you are when you're coming from a sense of calm contentment and appreciation, rather than when you're coming from a tense, constricting sense of dissatisfaction and not enough and I gotta get it. I mean, that just automatically pulls us in and makes us far less receptive to all the good that is ours. So today, continuing with our theme and looking at more ways to experience contentment, and you may recall me talking about these previously. These are some of my very, I'll say, personally favorite, I'll say tools and I was going to say mantras, but they're not quite that. Anyway, go-tos, some of my very favorite go-tos. And the first one is don't just do something, stand there. Don't just do something, stand there. Second is go slow to go faster. And the third is less fixing and more savoring. And these happen to be 3 chapters in his book as well. So, first of all, don't just do something, stand there. My mom, how about your mom, she always would say, well, don't just stand there, do something. I remember that as a kid. So this sounded rather cheeky. What do you mean, don't just do something, stand there? I mean, after all, most self-help books, go to Amazon and check out all the self-help books. They're all about 10 steps to this and 20 exercises for that and 30 ways to do something else. And most of them don't tell you to just, stand there and don't do anything. Most of them do not tell you how to be contented. They don't generally tell you how to be. So, on the other end of the spectrum, to support this idea of don't just do something, stand there, consider the words of Lao Tzu, the ancient Oriental philosopher in the Tao Te Ching. A foolish person is always doing, yet much remains to be done. A truly wise person does nothing, yet leaves nothing undone. Take that to brunch with you. A foolish person is always doing, yet much remains to be done. A truly wise person does nothing, yet leaves nothing undone. Now, this does not preclude action, but as Alan Cohen writes in his book, he says, we have more to gain from inner stillness than from incessant pushing. He said, if you have a decision or a problem before you, you might feel that you need to immediately do something. And yet, real and sustainable, lasting solutions come only from a shift in consciousness. And he goes on to say, when a quiet mind generates action, it's far more effective than one that is scattered or running on a mental treadmill. So, we might think, well, yeah, but if I'm just quieting down here, being still and oming away here, I'm not going to get anything done. And truth is, the actions that spring from that are far more coherent, creative, and sustainable. There's a book I've referred to for many years too, called The Tao of Leadership, and it's a book based on the principles of the Tao. And here are some things they say in that book. It speaks to this, again, instead of running around to do things, step back, stand still, don't do anything right away. It says, when you cannot see what is happening, don't stare harder. Relax and look gently with your inner eye. How many times do we scrutinize and scrutinize? Like, what is it? The Tao says, relax and look gently with your inner eye. It also says, when you are puzzled by what you see or you hear, don't strive to figure things out. Rather, stand back for a moment and become calm, because when a person is calm, and I'm going to insert contented, complex events appear simple. And finally, it says, rather than trying to figure things out, use your intuition and your reflection, because the more you can let go of trying, the more open and receptive you become, the more easily you will actually know what's happening. I think you get the idea. Don't just do something, stand there. Try it this week. Try it and see what amazing things happen. I can say that personally, that has really pulled me back from the edge many times. When I have either a lot of options I have to consider or a lot of decisions to make, or maybe I'm up against a wall, I don't know what to do. If I drop all of that and get quiet and realize that right now I do not have to do anything. I'm open. I'm just open and empty. And that clears my head. And it soothes my soul, and I'm contented, and yet it doesn't take long before I'm revived and ready for action, and yet it doesn't feel like stressful, frantic, exhausting action. And Dr. Ernest Holmes, the architect of our philosophy, said this about standing still. He said, standing still at this great fountain of supply in the very center of my being, I absorb that which I need mentally and physically, and I'm filled with the totality of what I desire. Standing still at this great fountain of supply, and it's within. In fact, Alan Cohen states sort of a paradoxical situation relating to all of this. He says, the more you can be here, the more you may realize that you have already arrived at the there you were busy rushing to. The more you can be here, the more you may realize that you're actually already at the there that you were rushing to. Which brings us to number 2 then. Go slow to go faster. Go slow to go faster. The title of that chapter actually is Going Nowhere Faster Won't Get You Somewhere. Think about that for a while. Going nowhere faster, but sometimes we are just faster. We think this is about going fast. Not thinking about where we're going, and as he says, it won't get you somewhere. And it certainly is a recipe for discontent. So go slow to go faster. In the martial arts, that may have originated in the martial arts. You have to go slow to go fast, meaning that you have to be relaxed and not tense so that you can move as quickly as you're actually capable of. Several years ago, you may recall me telling this story in years past. I was facing some decision with the center, and there were people telling me I should do this, I should do that, I should do this, and it was feeling very pressured and very fragmented, and I was feeling very disconnected and overwhelmed. And I had heard this go slow to go faster at some retreat, and I had always thought, that's a nice idea, and was not thinking of it at that moment. Well, I went to my front door, and I had a glass, storm door, and I happened to look out, and there, right on the threshold, was a great big turtle. Never before and never since has there been a turtle of any kind, of any size, in my yard, in my area, in my neighborhood. And I don't live near a body of water or anything. It was just, so I looked at that. And first of all, of course, I was just kind of stunned. By the way, I brought since that experience, I have my little, you can come and look at it afterwards, reminder turtle that on my desk all the time. To go slow, to go faster. So I looked at it, and then I thought, wait a minute, there's a reason why that turtle is there. And then I thought about the situation that was right in my face. I mean, I had been right on my mind as I went to the door. And I got the message, go slow. The turtle is telling you to slow down, girl. I thought, oh, well, I can't argue with a turtle. And it immediately brought me into a different place in my thinking. And I did step back. I slowed down. And I thought, all those voices, all those demands, all those different opinions, all of that, just set it aside. And I don't remember how long it took, how much time I just waited, but I came to a very clear, very calm, confident decision, and then took action. I'll never forget that because it did apply very practically and very constructively in my day-to-day challenge. And of course, some of us are kind of slow to get it, so the universe sent me the turtle. There's a greeting card I got some years ago that I loved. I loved what it said. Now, picture this. This is, by the way, a little statement about situations that occurred before we had cell phones. You remember phones that had the curly Q cords and it connected the receiver to the phone. Some of us remember that. And tell the young people what those were. So here's what the card said. It said, you know how sometimes you'll be talking on the phone and you'll get totally into the conversation, and so you start playing with the phone cord and stuff? Okay. So you talk for about an hour or 5 or whatever, and then when you finally have to get off the phone and you put down the receiver thingy and realize that the entire cord is in one humongous knot, because you've probably been walking around with the phone receiver to your ear. And then it goes on to say, and then you know how you unplug it from the phone and you stand on a chair and you let it dangle until it's all straightened out again. Well, that reminds me of something I wanted to tell you. Things have a way of working out. There's a lot of wisdom in that. Sometimes life can just feel that like that telephone cord. And if you've ever literally, with those kind of cords, try to untangle them, it's much easier if you just let it untangle itself. Try that. Slow down. If life has got you in a knot, stand on a chair and let it dangle. And choose to let it untangle. Choose contentment. Choose to slow down. And I promise you that if you need to move faster, after that you will. And you will move with greater clarity and greater confidence. This is about trust, which we sing about in our chant and which we talk about so often. And we can trust what Jim's prayer spoke about. the universe, the infinite, God itself, in, as, and through us. We can trust that. And when we go there, all of this makes perfect sense. Okay, number 3, less fixing and more savoring. Another way to be very content. Many of us have developed a habit of seeing what needs to be fixed. Perfectionists, anyone, we look at always what needs to be fixed. Oh, that's wonderful, but there's just this one little thing that needs to be fixed. Or a whole list of things that need. There are people who are just fixers. And we get into a habit, it's a mindset, rather than into the habit of appreciating and savoring what is working. And think about it. So much more is working than isn't working, or needing, we think, fixing. And when we're in that I gotta fix it mode, we're not very contented. And the thing is, with that mindset, the list of the things we think need fixing, well, it just never ends, and it's overwhelming. And again, it's not conducive to contentment, and it's not conducive to real creativity. Fixing is not creating. Fixing is not open to possibility. It's kind of just repairing. Not that some things, you fixed my mic today, thank you. I worship you, Albert. As a matter, Albert and Hunt. So there are certain things that do need fixing. Just this morning we were having some technical issues. So I'm not saying don't, but you know what I mean. There are some people that just could work your last good nerve because they're always got to be fixing something. And God forbid, trying to fix you. How do you feel when someone tries to fix you? So Alan Cohen says, when you put aside the need to fix, you open the door to finding. And you can relax, and you can be contented, and you can let life take care of itself without your needing to step in and save the day. I believe it was Byron Katie who said, there's my business, there's your business, and there's God's business. That's a good way of sort of sorting out this urge to fix everything. Maybe it isn't my business after all. Maybe it's up to you. I'm going to let you figure your situation out. And, of course, a whole lot of it is God's business. And if you're worried, he says, that spending more time and attention on savoring your life, that it'll turn you into kind of a blob. He said, never growing, never improving, something. But if I just savor what is, I should be going places, doing things, evolving. He said, the opposite is actually true. If anything keeps you from growing and improving, it's a fixation on fixing. And he said, actually, savoring what is working, what is, savoring your life is what opens you to contentment, certainly, and to evolution of who and what you're here to be. So there are 2 tools for that, acceptance and appreciation. Acceptance is not resignation. We've talked about that before. You know that. But acceptance is saying, I guess you could say it is what it is. Psychologist Carl Rogers said it so succinctly. He said, the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. Have you ever done that? It's not easy in this era of self-improvement, relentless self-improvement. But I'm grateful for 12-step programs that remind us to accept things I cannot change, and often it means accept who I am. Not that I can't change my thinking, but the things that I'm busy fretting and stressing about and therefore not very contented at all. How about accepting? This is who I am. And this is quite spectacular. So he says again, and what I've noticed is when I do that, I'm open to change. Then I can change. When I accept myself as I am, then I can change. And then he takes it a step further. When I accept others as they are, they can change. Have you noticed? When you stop pushing and trying to change somebody and accept them and allow them to be who they are, there's a spaciousness there. They may not change, but that's not your business. That's their business. But they certainly have a greater sense of freedom to change Have you noticed when someone accepts you, instead of trying to change you, accepts you as who you are, you can change. I remember when I met my husband, Erwin, all these many years ago, and I think it might have been, there were so many things that just grabbed my heart right away about that beautiful man. But one was just that he accepted me for who I was, and actually thought I was quite adorable too, but that aside. You know, just that feeling of being accepted, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I realized all my life, I guess I had surrounded myself maybe with people I thought were trying to change me. They probably weren't, but that was my perception. And he just was accepting me. And I truly remember it was kind of a whole new thing. And when I really relaxed into that, I became so much more and so much better of so much better version of who I was, who I am, who I could be. Accepting the others as they are, they change. And by the way, when we're let go of trying to fix other people and we accept them, again, it's a recipe for our own contentment, our own peace of mind. Whoa, what a load off my mind. And there, I found a definition for love. Maybe you've heard this, but it ties right into this. LOVE. Let others voluntarily evolve. LOVE. Let others voluntarily evolve. That's what I'm talking about. And then to take it a little bit further, when I accept conditions as they are, they can change. They can change. Jim's prayer was so beautiful because it stated clearly, it's not putting your head in the sand, but it said, conditions and appearances can be frightening and horrifying. But there's a greater truth. So it isn't like trying to change those conditions. It's about accepting that's what is. But I can go to a greater truth and know that greater truth. And of course, that informs, as his prayer also said, that informs then my actions of compassion, of healing. So how do we, looking at accepting things as they are, the second tool then was appreciation. Savoring. Remember, this section number 3 is about less fixing and more savoring. So there's a man whose great-grandfather was sitting on his front porch just rocking and smoking his pipe. Just rocking in the front porch. Remember front porches? Remember rocking chairs? And one day the man said, "Hey, Gramps, what are you doing?" And the man rocked and smoked for a few minutes, and then he said, "How soon do you need to know?" Savoring. That's contentment. That's savoring. Appreciation for what is provides the strongest platform for actually expanding into what could be. In his book, he says, actually fully embracing here might reveal to you that you have already arrived at the there you were rushing toward, as we said earlier. Embracing, savoring where you are. Several years ago, I had a friend who was living in another state, and he had lost his job and he had lost his home, and it was very, very tough time. And he and his beloved cat had to live in his car for several months. It was unbelievably difficult. But during those discouraging months, he shifted his perspective and he started making gratitude lists, which he shared with me. And this is about savoring, wherever you are with whatever you have. And here's a sampling of truly appreciating. And maybe even moments of contentment. Laundromats. A cooler filled with ice, blankets, laughter, showers with lots and lots of clean hot water. I love this one. Loud crying, screaming babies who take the attention off my wheezing, hacking cough while I'm in the store buying cough medicine. A stretch, I know, but savor the moment. His list included hot coffee on a cold, wet day, public parks with lots of open grassy areas. And he said, I laid down in the grass something I hadn't done for 20 years. Toothpaste, parking places, a warm cat that sleeps on my head and keeps it warm. Oh, you can relate to this one. Grocery carts with wheels that all go in the same direction at the same time. Friends, chicken soup, garlic parmesan Triscuits. He said, advice I get from my cat is nap more and purr more. He was finding a way to savor things in the midst of a very, very difficult situation. Again, Alan Cohen says, appreciation or savoring and contentment for what is provides the strongest platform for expanding into what can be. So next week we're going to talk some more about this, about the power of radical contentment. But now in closing, let me say this, and Jay is going to be coming up and singing a song that underscores it all and is ultimately about the reason that what makes it possible for us to stand still, makes it possible for us to go slowly and then always savor and be contented. Because it's that song by Eddie Watkins Jr., I'm not worried about tomorrow. Today I declare, today all things are made brand new. And don't it feel good to know that all is well and unfolding as it should. Amen. Church, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, dear.